الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم. وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم، وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة. وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاركم مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته، مصيبة ما عظمها وعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد، اللعين ابن اللعين، على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله، في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية، عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد، وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم لعن الثانية والثالثة والرابعة. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا، ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانة وعمر بن سعد وشمر وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجدة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome again to everyone. Tonight, after Maghrib, will be the night of the 3rd of Muharram. We've been together the past few nights, and inshallah we'll be together the next several nights as we prepare our hearts to move together and bear witness to the tragedy of Karbala. Inshallah, as with all nights, we're going to begin with the recitation of the Holy Quran. We'll bring up Brother Ali Reza Qanizad with a loud salawat.
One more loud salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيما أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
Ahsant. At the beginning, Brother Ali Reza wasn't able to be here with us, and we're incredibly fortunate that Brother Amin Hassan was able to recite that for us. So let's send a loud salawat for him. Just a heads up, as with previous nights, there's going to be simultaneous English and Farsi sessions. So if you wanted the Farsi session, it's across the hall where the shoe rack is. You go across, and you will see the Farsi session in the blue hall. This green hall, denoted by the carpets, is for the English session before Maghrib, and afterwards it'll be in Urdu. So please be aware of that. And before we continue on, we want to thank our sponsors for the evening. They are the Muqaddam and Noorani families. We ask that you recite a Fatiha for their marhumin and the marhumin of all of those present. Fatiha. Before we continue on with our program, inshallah, we're going to ask everyone to come forward a lot, because there's going to be packed by the end of the night. You've probably seen in the past few nights. So let's come up with a loud salawat. There's a lot of space. Let's keep on coming up. Also for the sisters, I was reminded that the sisters also need to move up. So if they could all move up, please come forward as well, inshallah. Thank you. So inshallah, our next part of the program is going to be our poems and our salams. We have these every night. If you're interested in participating in them, please come speak with us in advance so we can slot you in. So inshallah, we're going to start with a poem by Sister Salaha Akil. We'll bring her up with a loud salawat.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm feeling very blessed to be here with you all on these blessed nights. Please send a loud salawat while I find my poems. I'm going to read 2 poems tonight. This first poem includes lines from Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday, which is a work about lynching in the American South. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black body swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. It is here in these lines where I first learned to honor martyrs, to recall the names of those who were and ask Allah to reward them, the ancestors without whom I may not be here, standing, sitting, speaking. As a child, I learned the names of Emmett, Tamir, and Trayvon. With them too, I learned heartbreak and grief, a leaden weight which I have learned to carry. In Masajid, I learned the names of Abbas, Qasim, and Hussain. Mourning is a familiar practice for my people who have known so much pain. I lower my head and shed my tears. I cry myself noble, call myself broken, open, pray myself into a new day. Ya Allah, help me honor those from whom I came. Ya Allah, help me honor those who saved my faith. Ya Allah, let me be the best as I crawl to you. Accept our dhikr as we crawl to you. Salawat. This next poem is written from the perspective of the land of Karbala. I saw nothing but bravery, a valor that I have yet to see matched in all my years, and I have known long years. I saw courage. It looked like Ali Akbar and it looked like Asghar. It looked like Hur and Qasim. It looked like Zainab and Sakina. It looked like every life that stood for truth and justice that day. I saw blood fall like rain and was both honored to receive it and pained to see it spilled. But I bore it as best I could. The heavy hoofbeats of the horses did not hurt me. But I ached at the impact of Abbas's falling body. I cringe and weep and hope to keep each member of my prophet's family safe and whole until they can join me, become part of my embrace. As long as that may take, the things I saw on that day don't fade. I have not forgotten. I will not forget. I am the land of Karbala. Their battle took place on my back, and I saw nothing but bravery, nothing but fortitude, faith, and victory, hard won, hard lost, though it may be. No one bothers mention, but on that day I too was thirsty for something more kind, more quenching than blood, bodies, and shattered blades. Lady Zainab looked across me and saw nothing but beauty, even as she searched for her brother's body. And I thank Allah for the honor of being the one to bear my Imam's body, his bones becoming dust like me, hallowed ground, haunted home, holy. Today they come from all over to know me, to see the place where the Imam's life ceased and where their story began. I am home. I am land. Salawat.
Ahsant. Let's sing one word loud salawat for Sister Salaha. Next, we're going to have a salam from Brother Muhammad Ibrahim. We'll bring up Muhammad with a loud salawat.
Salawat. O star of Karbala, you left your light behind, descending from the sky. The heavens weep and cry. O star of Karbala, O star, did you witness the and crying for water, the tents ablaze with fire. O star of Karbala, O star of Karbala, you left your light behind, descending from the sky. The heavens weep and cry. O star of Karbala, O star, spread your light upon these noble martyrs who fought for Islam with honor. Their blood is mixed with valor. O star of Karbala, O star of Karbala, you left your light behind, descending from the sky. The heavens weep and cry. O stars of Karbala, O star, did you lament when burning were the tents? All the bells were snatched, and then Sakina was slapped. O star of Karbala, O star of Karbala, you left your light behind, descending from the sky. The heavens weep and cry. O star of Karbala, O star, did you witness the falling of the flag bearer, the warrior of this land, on the grains of sand? O star of Karbala, you left your light behind, descending from the sky. The heavens weep and cry. O star of Karbala, O star, they burnt out your light. The moon bowed at the sight. The clouds had wept and cried. A shadow had filled the sky. O star of Karbala, you left your light behind, descending from the sky. The heavens weep and cry. O star of Karbala. Salawat.
Ahsan, that was beautiful. Let's send one loud salawat for Muhammad. So there's going to be several announcements and some new announcements today, so bear with me, but these are important to keep in mind as we progress through the upcoming nights. The first is, again, if everyone can shift up. The last few nights have been quite packed, alhamdulillah. So let's all move up with a loud salawat. The first announcement I somewhat blush to say, since my kids were just wandering around as well and spilled some juice on me in the interim. So please try to be with your kids the entire time. Try to prevent them from making too much noise. We want to keep these programs open to kids. They should be comfortable being here, but we don't want them to be kind of taking over. So we ask that you be aware of that. And if you're having a hard time with your kids at 8:15 p.m., when the kids program is done, the room upstairs will be open so you can go there, and the khadims may direct you up there if the kids are making too much noise as well. So please bear with us throughout that. The second, this is a new announcement, but again, alhamdulillah, we have been packed these nights, and so the parking is getting full. If you see there's no parking in the parking lot, you can park on the street right outside that parking lot area, and apparently that's fine after 7 p.m. So feel free to do that as well. Yes?
Do you need supervision when you go upstairs into the child room?
If you're in the child room, that's totally fine. You don't need supervision to be there.
You don't?
No, sorry.
Yesterday they said that you need.
Do you mean during the children's program, or do you mean just when you're going up there? No, if you're going up there after the children's program, you have to be there with your parent. They'll come up there with you, inshallah. So, a couple other programs. Please arrive on time. As you've seen, the programs start exactly at 7 with the Ziyara Ashura. There's not a long delay or lag. We have Farsi, Urdu, and English happening all at once. So you want to make sure to be here so everything runs smoothly. The second is put your shoes on the shoe rack outside when you enter. And keep in mind that you're going to want to help everything stay clean and orderly overall while you're here. The khadims will be cleaning up and they will ask for your help with things, and they're doing a lot. But we want to keep things in line so that when the next program for the Urdu comes, it can transition smoothly. Please make sure your cell phone is off as well throughout the programs, again, keeping things quiet, especially during Shaykh's lecture. If you want to recite, just like you saw these beautiful poems, salams, short speeches, the nohas afterwards, then please come speak with your organizers and let them know. We will try to find a time for you. If you come the day of and there's someone there, you may not be able to get a chance, so please let us know in advance. As I've mentioned before, and as we were just talking about, there's a children's program at 7:25. That is for kids between the ages of 5 and 10. After that program is done, parents can be upstairs with their kids if they need space to wander and make a little bit more noise, and head up there as well. Overall, though, you must be with your kids at all times, so they shouldn't be wandering alone in the parking lot, in the empty areas, in the stairwell. You should be with them, so don't let them wander. Again, I encourage you, everyone, to clean up after yourselves if you can and keep things going. And just help the khadims out as much as you can. Last piece is proper Islamic attire, as always, is expected of the sisters and the brothers when you are here. With that said, we want to thank you all again for coming, and we've been incredibly fortunate to have Shaykh Bilal Hussain with us the past several nights. We'll inshallah have him through to Ashura and benefit from his guidance. I have been giving his bio the past few nights, and I'll kind of give an abbreviated version today, inshallah, just so we can get a sense of how fortunate we are to have him with us. He is born and raised in New York and completed his undergraduate studies at Temple University. He left a career in corporate finance to study for 7 years in the Hawza in Najaf, and is currently in charge of the Beit al-Qaim Center in Delran, New Jersey, in addition to copious other activities that benefit the Ummah in North America and overall. We're fortunate to have him here with us, and we'll bring up Shaykh Bilal Hussain with a loud salawat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المأسومين، واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض ولكن كذبوا فأخذناهم بما كانوا يكسبون. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'jeel farj sahib al-asr wa zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكر المسائب آل Muhammad. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating the difficulties of Ali Muhammad. In our brief mention around the fiqh that we're discussing in these nights, around the concept of death. We mentioned yesterday the concept of a wasiyah, and there are a few other things to pay attention to other than a wasiyah before the time of death that we do as a preparation. Amongst them is the thinking and the discussion about death and the preparation for death. That is not something that, for example, should be a surprise for any of us, nor should it be sometimes we see that we have families that refuse to accept or don't want to admit that this is coming as a reality. An important point to remember in this is the statement of how Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam describes the death of the Holy Prophet, where he says, the best of humanity has died, so prepare, O humanity, to know that death will come to everyone. If there was anyone who deserved to live forever, it was our Prophet. So if he was not one who stayed in this world longer than an average lifespan of a human being, don't imagine that you or your loved ones will have that fursa, or that they will not face the reality of death. This mistake of, for example, hiding from death or not discussing death is a very Western concept about the fact of that be so engrossed in this world and in this dunya that you never prepare for what's coming next. Which is why one of the important things is the talking about death. Other than talking about death, there's a process of, for example, a person should purchase their kafan before their death. Now, it's from the mustahabbat to actually look at your kafan on a daily basis. It's a recommended thing that I have my kafan, I look at it. But sometimes, for example, we have this sentiment of overly attachment to even these concepts. I'll give you an example. Sometimes it happens that a person passes and they don't have a kafan. And they ask in the community, does anyone have a kafan? And someone may have it at home, but they say, shh, that's mine, I don't want to. We become attached to even these objects, but at the end of the day, the significance is that a kafan should be something that's available, something that's prepared, something that I take care of as my responsibility before that time of death comes, that I'm prepared for it. One of the recommendations even, and we saw that, for example, even Imam al-Majlisi in his time, there's actually a very famous speech from Imam al-Majlisi before his death, where when he sits on the pulpit, he says, Ayyuhan nas, you know who I am, you know what is my faith. I am the one who believes in La ilaha illallah, believes in the messenger of our Prophet, believes in the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt. And I ask you to bear witness to this fact before my death. And he himself presents his kafan, or a piece of cloth on which the shahadat of 40 mu'mineen is given, and he includes that in his kafan. It's actually one of the mustahabbat that is part of our kafan, to have the shahadat, the witness of 40 mu'mineen, that what was our aqeedah, what was our iman, what was our faith. And to include that as part of our kafan, as part of our burial process. Now, some communities, for example, build a practice that after somebody dies, they have a sheet of paper that's part of this process and they fill it out for the community member and they have people in the community sign on this piece of paper. But imagine the responsibility and the thoughtfulness of death that a person takes the effort to do this themselves. That to prepare that paper, to prepare that document that I would be buried with, to include it as a tabarruk with myself. And the idea of having the tabarrukat that we want to be buried with is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. There's even the narrations that describe that say that Zahra at the time of her shahadat had tears that she had wept in the love of Allah. I've met certain ulama who what they do is they preserve in the tissues the tears that they have cried for Imam Hussain, and they say, include these with my kafan. That I want these to bear witness of my love for Ahlul Bayt and my ibadat of Ahlul Bayt, that it should be included. So these are good efforts to include. And the third thing that we mentioned that's a good in terms of preparation for the person who is dying is the purchase of one's own grave. In some Muslim countries, it happens that, in the community, in the society, it's an establishment that graves are provided. But here, living in this country, we know that graves are not cheap and not easy to come by. And while it may be something that from your aslat taraka, from your actual wealth that you leave behind, you can anticipate that your grave will be bought by this. But it's an investment to make yourselves, to make sure that I've taken care of my responsibilities. I haven't placed a burden on someone else that this is an obligation to do. In somewhat of a morbid self-tale, when I came back from Najaf, I called my parents, I said, I bought real estate. I bought my first real estate. And it was so unexpected for my parents. They were like, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. So I told my parents I bought real estate. I'm very excited I bought real estate. And they said, you didn't tell us, we didn't hear, what did you buy? I said, I bought my grave. Like, hi, what are you doing? But once we talked about it, they appreciated the concept that I said, listen, hey, look, I know these things are expensive anyway, and it's one of the investments that I have to make, and it's the piece of property that I'll spend the most amount of time in. So why not make the investment in it and make sure that I've taken care of my responsibility and gone through this process? So the same way, it's something to promote. It's something that when we become engrossed in the world, we ignore this. We ignore this reality. But the truth is that it's, right? If you look at the English statements, there's only two guarantees in life, right? Death and taxes. And if you look at, for example, the Islamic perspective, Inna al-mawta haqq, that is, death is guaranteed. And which is why Ahlul Bayt would explain and said, if the best of society is left, what makes you think you'll remain? That you won't be afflicted by this issue. So therefore, even before we get to the door of death, it's one of the things to invest our time in and to invest our resources in is the preparation of this death, that we make sure that we, for example, think about, talk about this issue. We, for example, prepare our kafan and do the mustahabbat that we have the access to and prepare for that process. And same thing, purchasing of this grave and being attached to the grave. Our Prophet would say, alaykum bihadim al-ladhat, that I enjoin upon you to go to the destroyer of desires. وَمَا هُوَ ذَلِكَ, and what is that? Ziyarat al-Qubur, to visit the graves. When we have our grave and we have that place, it reminds us that, do I really need to change my phone every year? Do I really need to buy a car? Do I really need to pick a fight with so-and-so? Or can I overlook some of these things because at the end of the day, I know that this is a temporary life. Why fight over something that tomorrow will be insignificant? In this aspect, inshallah, we'll continue our discussion around some of these things in the preparation and discussions around death. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In our discussion around building a virtuous community, yesterday we mentioned some of the goals of a community, and we mentioned 4 major points in areas that a community should be focused upon and should make sure that it addresses. We talked about, for example, establishing the proof of Allah and that it becomes a sign of Allah, establishing the proof of the religious authority, guarding and defending the religion of Islam and its infrastructure, and being an excellent example. As a community that's a virtuous community, these are the things that when they are embodied in the society, we know that the society is now representing the faith of Islam and is representing the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. But there's something else that goes with this. In the same way that for every ibadah that can be done in collective, there are elements that are expressed in the individual. I'll give you an example. Praying Salat al-Jama'ah is very mustahab. But as soon as I join Salat al-Jama'ah, it doesn't mean that my individual responsibility has been lifted and I have nothing to do and it's like, okay, cruise control. the Imam will take care of everything and I just have to be here. No, there are parts that the Imam takes care of. The thawab is definitely increased. But individually, I have a responsibility that there are adhkar, there are parts that I have to recite myself in my prayer. And not only is it that I have to do the wajibat, there are certain mustahabbat that even in Salat al-Jama'ah that I can perform individually that are beneficial to me. For example, where do I line up in Salat al-Jama'ah? There are mustahabbat to this as well too. There are recommended actions that it as an individual I can take. Being in the first line is very mustahab, is recommended. Being to the right of the Imam is very recommended, it's mustahab. Being in the beginning, participating, joining the Jama'ah from the very beginning. This is an interesting one. You guys okay? I'm going to take a side for a second. Yes? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Has it ever happened to you that the Jama'ah is beginning and you're doing your mustahabbat, you're doing your nawafil? Or for example, you hear the Jama'ah starting and you're like, oh, I'll get there before he gets to ruku', I'll get there eventually. Especially for talaba, when we go to, for example, in the masajid, in Najaf as well too, this was a conversation, this was a nasiha that was given to me by one of my teachers. He says, sometimes I see the talaba are busy in the nawafil and the Jama'ah is beginning. And what you do is you say, well, by the time he gets to ruku', I'll join the Jama'ah, let me finish my nafila, and then I'll join. Or let me finish this one thing, or send this one text, I'll join in a second. And we think that whatever the action is that we're performing, the ibadah that we're performing other than that Jama'ah is important to complete. But the ultimate value of that Jama'ah, there is nothing that compares in thawab to participating in that Salat al-Jama'ah from the very beginning of that Salat. To the extent where even if I'm praying a nafilah, and the Imam begins and he stands up and he does takbiratul ihram, break the nafilah wherever you are and join the Jama'ah. You can't earn more reward through the nafilah than you can by being in that Jama'ah from the very beginning. It's an important element to take account for. And the same thing when we have the opportunity that we can, for example, proceed towards prayer casually, or we can rush towards prayer. Hayya ala salah, hurry to prayers. It's because that Jama'ah has something that you can't find anywhere else. So it's a really important thing to do and take advantage of. But that's outside of the focus of our point. The focus of our point is this, to say that in every collective activity that we possess is the responsibility of an individual. In the same way that there is a collective and Jama'ah and a community that we want to build, there's the responsibilities of the individual that if the individual does not fulfill them, the Jama'ah is not successful. In the same concept, when we talk about building a community, it's not just about what we do collectively, it's also about what we do individually. And this has a lot of responsibility. Why? Because sometimes it happens that I can't find a community. I live too far away to participate in an active community. What do I do? Then is it everything lifted off of me and I have no obligation? Or two, it happens that I'm part of a community, but they don't do everything great. Some things are good, some things are not, some things are okay, some things could be better. So what? Is that my scapegoat that I don't have an obligation then to perform any obligations or responsibilities? Or three, there are righteous things that the community needs to be doing and they're not doing them. So what do? Do I either one, for example, create a fight in the society and fight the community that our community needs to do this? Two, do I leave the community and find something else? Or three, do I bring about change in the community? The change in the community, you have to remember something. As I mentioned on the first day, nobody builds a community with the ill intention that we're going to build a bad place. Everybody thinks we're going to build a good place. But it happens that sometimes, whether it's culture, whether it's necessity, whether it's society, forces us into a pattern and we get stuck in a pattern that there's a better way of doing things. And sometimes we can see that there's a better way of doing something. And we want to bring about change. But remember something, things didn't become like this in a day, and they don't change in a day. It takes time. And the process of initiating change in a community where there's many people together begins with allowing for time for change to take place and establishing a positive example. That positive example comes from consistency of character, that when I'm constantly developing my character and behaving in a good way, then eventually over a long period of time, I earn the right to be able to influence a society and bring about positive change. It doesn't happen instantaneously. There's no pedigree that I can list. Even as a cleric, I can't walk into a community and tell you, all of you are wrong, do this now. Some may listen. Many will say, Baba, who are you? Where did you come from? Why should I listen to you? What makes you think you know us and the struggles that we've been through? That's why change is not an instantaneous process. But if you want to bring about change in the collective, it begins with the development and the advancement of the individual. There are certain things the community will help you grow and support that you will get from the community, and that other things that I have to do as an individual that will both make me improve and two, will ensure that the community is growing and improving consistently throughout the entire process. So which is why, what are those things that we need to focus on? We'll mention a few of them with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. First and foremost, take a look at the verse that we began with, that this concept that I'm presenting to you, the individual responsibility as well as the collective, is not something I came up with. Rather, when we take a look in Surah Al-A'raf, the verse that we began our discussion with, chapter 7, verse number 96. وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقُوا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلَكِنَّ كَذَّبُوا فَأَخَذْنَاهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Allah in this verse is saying, and if the people of the towns had believed and shown piety, the people of the towns had shown piety. Not the sifa of the town itself, that it was a pious town, but that the individuals of the collective of the institution were the ones who displayed the attributes that Allah wanted. So Allah says, if these people of this towns had shown piety, we would have certainly opened up for them blessings from the heaven and the earth, but they rejected. So we overtook them for what they had earned. There's a very long discussion around this verse and its particular concept, but the significance that we're mentioning through this verse is that there is an element of individual development, that it's not sufficient to say that, oh, I live in a good place, or, oh, our community doesn't do this. In spite of the community, it's on the individual as well that the effort is exerted, and that the individual, Allah is judging the individual as well. And there's a variety of different discussions that talk about this, where, for example, the adhab of Allah that has befallen people is not just the ones who sinned, but also the ones who stayed silent. Meaning that it's not enough that, for example, if the community is bad, that I'm indifferent to it. No, I have to be the positive change in every society. I have to continue my individual development. Which is why, when we talk about this individual development, there are some things that you have to work on for yourself. Nobody can do them for you. You have to exert the effort. And if you want a positive community, it's not enough that you join into a positive community or a good community and that the community will take care of you and you're on cruise control. The same way, going to Salat al-Jama'ah, yes, there are some things the Imam does, there are some things that we do together, but if I'm not doing my individual responsibility, Salah is still not accepted. In the same way, when we talk about community, if you have to do the work individually, aside from just coming and showing up to the center, if you're not doing the work, you can't succeed. One of the ways that I describe this is exactly this conversation that we're having tonight. And every conversation that you have in a majlis. A majlis is an introduction to a topic. It's not an exhaustive discussion of a topic. You can't become an expert on a subject or knowledgeable about a subject or complete an application of an issue just because you heard a majlis about it. A majlis just guides you that when you approach a subject, how do I approach the subject to make sure that I don't get lost in the topic? The fundamentals are discussed in the majlis, but the actual work is on the individual. And we've been doing this wrong. And I'll tell you we've been doing this wrong. How many of us, and don't raise your hands, I don't want to know. How many of us we say, I heard in a majlis? How many of us actually go through the effort of saying, I read in a book? How many of us say, I heard Fulan bin Fulan say this? How many of us can say that I read in a book and here's the reference and the source of the information that I'm talking about? We've become lazy in this process. We've put the entire responsibility on the institution to give us our education about faith, instead of realizing that the institution is designed to facilitate growth, not to own the entirety of growth. That's your job, my job, as an individual, to go through this process and come to good conclusions about what do I need to accomplish. Which is why the first thing that you need to establish as an individual is a sound belief system. The focus upon your aqeedah and making sure that I understand the aqaid of Islam in thorough detail. This focus on aqaid is an individualistic responsibility. The collective will simply represent the general value, but it can't ensure that that value of sound belief system is placed into the individual. This sound belief system and understanding your aqidah thoroughly is one of the important principles that keeps us from having foreign ideologies creep into our culture, creep into our society, and creep into our households. If my aqidah is weak, then I'm susceptible to falling into, for example, philosophical traps. I'm susceptible to falling into, for example, innovations that come into faith. I'm susceptible to misunderstandings about Allah and the Ahlul Bayt. Shall I give you an example? You guys are awake? If you're going to go to sleep, I'm going to go to sleep too. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I've used this example before. If you've heard it, forgive me. Can Allah create a rock so big He can't lift it? Can Allah create a rock so big He can't lift it? This is an ideological fallacy. It's a bad question. But if you live in a society and you don't do your research about understanding your aqidah and understanding the philosophy of faith and what your faith actually says, you'll get caught in this problem. So what's the problem with the question, right? It's a conundrum. That if God is all-powerful, then He should be able to create something that is super big and huge. But if He creates something that's so super big and huge, then is He all-powerful if He can't lift it? So you wind up in a catch-22 that, okay, which way do I go with this? Is it possible for Allah to create something that He can't lift? Well, if He can make it, that means that He's not all-powerful because He can't lift it. And if He can't make it, then He's not all-powerful because He can't make it. But the question is bad. And if my aqidah is weak, then I'll get caught in this. The bigger and worse scenario of this is just a hypothetical, and I'll answer it for you in a second. But there are worse situations than this to get caught in. If God is good and God loves us, then why do bad things happen to good people? Why do innocent people get affected by disasters? Why do people kill each other and innocent people die? All of these are conundrums that if my aqidah is weak, I will lose my faith. When we talk about spend your time talking about tawheed and adalat and nabuwat and imamat and ma'ad, it's not just because we need to give you something to do. It's because if you don't understand these concepts thoroughly and correctly, and that belief system is weak, you'll make mistakes. Even more practical that we see in our own community is people who don't understand the attributes of Ahlul Bayt. And sometimes they raise Ahlul Bayt too high, and other times they lower Ahlul Bayt too low. There are those who, for example, come to believe and say Ahlul Bayt were just normal people, but they were really smart. And there are those who say that no, the Ahlul Bayt are the divine. All of this confusion comes from the fact that my aqidah was weak, and when someone approached me with something that had a fallacy in it, I didn't have the discretion, the knowledge, the understanding to be able to save myself from that discrepancy. We're not going to address all these tonight. The significance of it is that this is something that requires research. And if you don't find research and do research as an individual, you can see, as I'm describing this, the problems that come into communities. Where people's aqidah is weak, then the society becomes weak. The infrastructure falls apart. And we wind up with communities that are, for example, excessive in one example or another example, because they didn't spend time to properly research and learn this. Back to our question really quickly. Can God make a rock so big that He can't lift it? The question is bad. How is the question bad? And I'll explain it to you. You may know that doesn't make sense, right? And the fun thing is when I ask kids this question, I can see their brain break in the middle. They're like, yeah, but... And you kind of see them start twitching a little bit like, I don't know how to answer it. Well, the answer is very simple. A rock is something that requires space, time, and matter. Anything that is created has these three attributes: that it takes up space, there's some place where it is, there's some place where it isn't. It takes up time, that there is a point where it was and a point where it isn't, and there's a point where it began and a point where it will end. And there is something that it is made of and something that it is not made of. You can say that these are the elements present within it, and these are the ones that are absent from it. When it comes to Allah, because He is the one who created all of this, Allah is not measured by space, Allah is not measured by time, and Allah is not measured by material. Allah doesn't exist within this realm. So therefore the question is bad. Why? Because you can't measure Allah, who is outside of these three elements, by something that exists within these three elements. So the question is bad. But to someone who basically just thinks about the fact that Allah is supposed to be all-powerful, and if He's all-powerful, then can He be limited by a rock that He creates for Himself or not? It doesn't work. And that's because of a bad basic belief system, that they didn't invest enough time to educate themselves on what is the characteristic of aqeedah that they need to possess, and what are the characteristics of Allah that I need to know about. We talk about sifat thubutiyya wa sifat salbiyya. These things that we talk about, elements that are mandatory to be present in Allah and those that are mandatory to be absent in Allah. I'm not asking you, don't tell me. I don't need to know who knows, who doesn't know. But that entire discussion is incredibly functional. That if we don't invest the time, we're going to lose it. If we can take a moment and move forward. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
There's a lot of room up front.
So now I've given you a premise that you need to have a sound belief system. And you need to work on your sound belief system to make sure that you as an individual, if you're not corrupted, your society isn't corrupted. So how do you build this sound belief system? And for this, you have to turn back to the instruction that the Prophet gave us. And our Holy Prophet, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, gives us instruction that how do you build your sound belief system. And he says, إِنِّي تَارِكٌ فِيكُمُ الثَّقْلَيْنِ كِتَابُ اللَّهِ وَعِتْرَتِي أَهْلَ بَيْتِي مَا إِن تَمَسَّكْتُم بِهِمَا لَن تَضِلُّوا بَعْدِي أَبَدًا وَلَن يَفْتَرِقَ حَتَّى يَرِدَ عَلَيَّ الْحَوْض. This hadith al-Thaqalain is not something that's just for the beauty of the recitation. It is incredibly functional. That your sound belief system, our Prophet tells us that I'm leaving you two heavy things. And that these two heavy things, if you stay attached to them, you'll never go astray ever. And these two things will never be separated until they turn back to our Prophet at Hawd al-Kawthar, meaning on the Day of Judgment, you'll attain success because of your attachment to these two things. Meaning the fundamentals of a sound belief system our Prophet gave us. He says, you want to have a sound belief system, you want to make sure you do the right thing, I'm telling you what you need to do. Stay attached to these two things. Invest in these two pieces of infrastructure. Kitab Allah wa itrati Ahl Bayti. The Book of Allah and my Ahl Bayt. Now the implementation of this is what we're talking about. Is that okay, fine. I need a sound belief system. I believe in the value it's adding to me. Rasulullah gave me the formula. How do I implement the formula? And that's where the work comes in as an individual. For us to make this community and every community work, you have to put in the work. And here are the steps to putting in the work. And there are a total of 6 steps. You guys ready? I want 6 salawat today then, all right? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. First of these is knowledge of the Quran. Right? Kitab Allah. Our Prophet mentions it first. There's nothing our Prophet does that doesn't make sense. The reference to Kitab Allah first is that this is the basic fundamental. This is the weightiest of the 2 items, and this is the one that requires work from everybody, and you can't get to the conclusion without investing in this. Knowledge of the Holy Quran, and no one was more knowledgeable about the Holy Quran than the Ahl Bayt. You can't love Ahl Bayt and follow Ahl Bayt if you're not attached to and devoted to the Quran. We have people sometimes, and this is no mistake, again, this is the naqs, the shortcoming in a complete belief system, that we have people who say, I love Ahlul Bayt, that will be enough for me to get to Jannah. Baba, Ahlul Bayt were tied to the Quran. How can you be tied to Ahlul Bayt if you're not tied to Quran? And that's where we miss out. We don't make it a lifelong practice to stay attached to the Quran. We're forced as children to read, and then after that it's like, okay, when I get time, now I get time. That's not how this works. The Quran is something that requires dedication and effort. It requires something that you have to create the focus and invest in it, and then it gives you such dividends you can't imagine. The love of Quran and its attachment to the Ahlul Bayt is given in the example of Bibi Fidda. Bibi Fidda, who was a servant in the house of Ahlul Bayt, there are stories about her when she became old. Do you know she didn't speak except for verses of Quran? Everything she said was an ayah of Quran. Where do you think she learned that from? It's from the example of the Ahlul Bayt, from the family of the Prophet. Imagine that in your old age that you could constantly quote Quran about everything that you do in your life. Imagine that I spend one verse a day. Mustahabbat is 7. Start your day with 7 verses of Quran. At least 7 verses of Quran. The ones who are considered, Allah says, those who are attached to the Quran, Hamil al-Quran, they have an azim status on the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment, when people will be without clothing, that the one who was attached to the Quran will be clothed. And not just clothed, in glorious clothing, in raised status, with crowns on your head. For the one who recited the Quran, for the one who pondered over the Quran, for the one who applied the Quran in their life. And now it's getting easier and easier if we just commit to it, if we make the effort. That now with the resources that are coming about, if we say that, okay, fine, I don't understand Arabic, there's English. Or there's Farsi, there's Urdu, there's whatever language that I need, the language is available. If I say I don't understand Arabic, Baba, we don't have that excuse anymore that I don't understand Arabic. You live in one of the most advanced and educated societies. Many of our children will learn to speak Japanese and Thai and all these other languages. You can't invest some time in learning the Arabic. Duolingo tells you to do it every single day. What do you mean you can't take the time to learn Arabic? That's on us, right? There was a time, and I agree, there was a time in our history where we were uneducated, didn't have access to resources. The whole point of being in this country was to get access to resources. So if I have access to resources that can give me an iPhone at 2 a.m. when I want it, I can have Amazon deliver me the most random thing within 24 hours of placing that order, why can't I devote something to be closer to Ahlul Bayt and Quran? What's stopping me? The convenience, the comfort. This Quran demands attention, and it deserves attention. And it's one of the most weightiest things that our Prophet says, لَن تَذِلُّوا. You won't be going through dhilal, going astray, after the Prophet if you are attached to this Quran. We need that devotion. We need that focal point. That the same way that I know I need to take my multivitamin every day, I know I need to read Quran every day. I have medication I need to take every day, take the medication of the soul, recite the Quran every day. The second of these points, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is the study and the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt and the seerah of the Ahlul Bayt. That learning about the examples of the Ahlul Bayt and khususan through the Ahlul Bayt, the example of our Holy Prophet. Remember something, our Prophet is not a normal person. It's not someone who just says something. When he is rahmatul lil alameen, every motion, every movement, everything is an example of exactly what Allah loves on this earth. Exactly. There's no one who could have done anything better than our Prophet. And the fact that you were separated from the Prophet is why Allah gave us the seerah of Ahlul Bayt. That if it was too hard for you to reach to him directly and get that instruction of what it is that Allah wants to see on this earth, look at the example of those who are the children of this Ahlul Bayt, of this Prophet. Where the Ahlul Bayt would explain, Awwaluna Muhammad, Akhiruna Muhammad, Awsatuna Muhammad, Kulluna Muhammad. Spend time. How many of us have read hadith as opposed to just heard them? And there are now authentic books. Historically, you could say it was difficult to find, where do I find out something that's authentic? The research has been done. It's been provided. It's been translated in book on top of book on top of book. And it's not something that's just a material benefit that will change the way you live your life. As a matter of fact, our Prophet would explain, and he says, one who memorizes and practices 40 of my traditions, I guarantee him entrance into heaven. 40. 40's nothing. Do one a week, it won't take you a year. Learn, listen, practice, apply. 40 statements of the Prophet, if I can indicate and incorporate them into my lifestyle, the Prophet guarantees Jannah, not anybody else. Did I spend time on this? Did I learn this example? I want the community to do the work, but I don't want to do the work. Maulana Abbas Ulada, you tell us. Ubayyin lana. Tell us. No. Did I do the work? Did I make the effort? Did I invest in this? The infrastructure exists. The third of these points, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The third of these, the first three are intellectual, the next three are practical. The third of these, that if I want to have a sound belief system that I need to make sure I implement, is following and learning the ahkam of Islam from the jurists of the time. Why? The religion of Allah is timeless. The religion of Allah came from the time of Rasulullah and will be till the day of judgment. Halalu Muhammadin halalu ila yawm al-qiyamah wa haramu Muhammadin haramun ila yawm al-qiyamah. That whatever the Prophet brought will be valid from the day that he brought it until the end of this time. How do I know how to apply that? There's nothing new that's being added. But the question is in the application, that as time changes, as the world changes, how do I make sure that I'm following the inscription and the teaching and the regulations that the Prophet established? I can either one, go out and everything that I come across in my life, research and try and figure out what is the role. When Rasulullah makes a statement, he says, right? لَإِن تَمَسَّكْتُمْ بِهِمَا لَمْ تَذِلُّوا بَعْدِي. How can I do and attach the Quran and Ahlul Bayt if something comes up that I haven't seen the Ahlul Bayt interact with? How can I be attached to them if I don't know how do they apply or deal with something that's a contemporary issue that's showing up today? That's the concept and the importance of the jurist. It's not simply a discretionary practice or someone trying to trick you and say that, no, follow this individual instead of following your intellect. No, the point is that the intellect doesn't have sufficient access to information to make the decision about how to deal with a complication, so I refer back to the specialist in the area. I go back to someone who's the absolute best in this field to give me instruction that how do I stay attached to Allah? How do I stay attached to the Ahlul Bayt? How do I stay attached to the Quran? What is the practical application of how this works? And that's the role of a jurist. Hakim al-Shar doesn't take that role lightly. In the history of Islam, it's not the Hakim al-Shar who wanted this. Rather, it was the fact that it had to be forced upon them because there was no one else who could solve the problems of the time. There was no one else who could make assistance to fix the issues of the environment. And which is why, till today, if there are names that we remember, Shaykh al-Ansari, Alama Hindi, Muqaddis Ardabaili, Shaykh al-Hindi, Sayyid al-Khuwi even. These names, they didn't choose, they didn't try to become famous that we would remember them. No, rather that their service to Islam is something that's so pure and clean that what they offered to humanity, Allah made their name persist. Because they became the wasila to connect you to Quran and Ahlul Bayt. Which is why one of the importance, as much as I'm spending time in Quran and learning the Quran, I'm spending time with Seerah of Ahlul Bayt, the ahkam of how do I implement this in my life, I have to make the investment to find the jurist, study the ahkam, and make sure that my lifestyle points back to the fact of what the Ahlul Bayt were actually teaching. The conversation is incredibly fundamental. It's very simple. The mistake we make is that we think we have discretion in the matter. That's my choice. Which brings us to the practical parts of these three things, and how do we establish a sound belief system? Three more, you guys are with me? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Having a sound belief system is not enough about thinking about something, it has a practicality to it. It has to have a practicality to it, which is why Allah makes a statement in the Quran and He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. كَبُرَ مَقْتًا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَن تَقُولُوا مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. Allah, in the 61st chapter of the Holy Quran, makes a statement. He says, "O those of you who believe, why do you say that which you do not do?" It's not me asking the question. Allah is asking the question. Why do you say that which you don't do? It is most hateful to Allah that you should say that which you do not do. So meaning that if I want to have a sound belief system, it's not going to be enough that I think about things or I know things. It's going to be that there's a practical element that can be seen in my action that's a reflection of that sound belief system. Otherwise, Allah is the one who is chastising you and saying that you said it, but you didn't do it. So meaning that there's a practicality that has to be implemented. When I grow myself as an individual, it's not enough that I have knowledge I have to have application as well too. And this is where, for example, the first point of application of this knowledge and the first point of having a sound belief system is increasing in your worship and asceticism. When I say worship and asceticism, most of us are basically saying that we have a checklist of things that I need to accomplish in a day, and as long as I can put a tick mark next to it, I'm done, khalas, tamam. Allah wanted me to pray, I prayed. Allah wanted me to fast, I fasted. Allah told me go to Hajj, I went to Hajj. Allah told me pay khums, I cried, but I paid khums. I did what Allah wanted. What more do you want from me in ibadah? See, that's the mistake. I'm going to give you an example. You guys good with an example? You guys have all heard this story. Our fifth Imam, when he talks about his father, he says, one day I came to see my father and I found him in a condition of exhaustion and he had been busy in ibadah. And after his ibadah, he said, oh my son, bring to me a scroll from such and such location. And I realized that my father had been performing ibadah he had never performed before. You guys have all heard this, right? And Imam Zayn al-Abidin looks at the scroll, and the scroll falls from his hands, and he says, no one can worship Allah the way Ali ibn Abi Talib worshipped Allah. Have you ever really thought about that hadith? I mean, yeah, it's amazing. Imam Zayn al-Abidin is amazing, Amir al-Mu'mineen is more amazing. But did you really think about it? What's the significance of that hadith? Is there a better human being on this earth than the Imam? No. Why is he exhausting himself in new forms of worship of Allah? Didn't he have the same checklist we have? Didn't he check the same boxes we did? This statement that Imam Baqir is making about Imam Zayn al-Abidin is an instruction to you that do you exert yourself in the worship of Allah, or do you just check the boxes? We, the Ahlul Bayt, exert ourselves in more and different ways to show our love to Allah, that, oh mu'mineen, do the same as we do. That question, that entire hadith, we take it as the fadail of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the fadail of Amir al-Mu'mineen. مَا كَانَ أَحَدٌ أَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَمَا كَانَ أَعْبُدَ عَلِيَّ ibn Abi Talib. Nobody worshipped Allah the way Ali ibn Abi Talib. Baba, what does that teach you? What is significant to us? What changed in me? How did my ibadat change? When is the last time you pushed yourself to worship Allah and increase and do an ibadah of Allah that you have never done before? How often do you challenge yourself to bring about the worship of Allah? How often do you look at something special that I can do for the sake of Allah? This concept of increasing in ibadat and worship of Allah, there's even a hadith that goes back to Isa ibn Maryam, who says to his mother after she died, oh mother, if Allah has given me the ability to bring someone back to life, if I was to bring you back to life, what do you miss from this life? She says, I miss the fasts in the long days of summer, and I miss the prayers in the long nights of winter. The longest day of the year just passed. How many of us have ever thought about that the longest day of the year, could I fast for the sake of Allah? And how many of us say, thank God Ramadan isn't happening on the longest day of the year? There was like an entire celebration that happened when the days started becoming shorter, right? And alhamdulillah, the days are becoming shorter. We've gone through. What happened? Where did the pleasure of ibadat go? Where did the pleasure of thinking about the pleasure, the pleasure of the thought that Allah desires something from me and I possess all of the resources from Allah? How do I dedicate these resources to Allah? How do I do something not for myself that I will make more money because of this, or I will become famous because of this, or I will be special because of this, and just simply did an act of worship just for the love of Allah, not because He asked me to, but because I love Allah. I want a great community, but am I doing those things that make a great community? You want to see, and this happens, right? That there are communities that I've been to where it's like, Maulana, namaz bahut lambi ho gayi hai. Anta tawalat as-salat. Aksarha shway. Ehna tabaneen. We're tired. Faster. Have you ever been to those communities? You go to a community and it's like, namaz is like this. Why? Because the community can't withstand. Why can't the community withstand to have their prayer slightly longer? Because they don't take the time to enjoy the prayer themselves. So when they pray in a community, there's no enjoyment in the prayer. If I want the community to spend its time in ibadah, then I have to spend my time in ibadah. That worship becomes incredibly important. The next of these attributes, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. is the putting into practice the attributes of Ahlul Bayt. That those things that I saw the Ahlul Bayt do, I do. We see the statement from our sixth Imam. He makes a statement, he says, لَيْسَ مِنْ شِيعَتِنَا مَنْ قَالَ بِلِسَانِهِ وَخَالَفَنَا فِي أَعْمَالِنَا وَآثَارِنَا وَلَكِنْ مِنْ شِيعَتِنَا مَنْ وَافَقَنَا بِلِسَانِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ وَأَتْبَعَ آثَارِنَا وَعَمَلِ عَمَلِنَا أُولَٰئِكَ شِيعَتُنَا. Everybody here wants to be the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. Everybody wants some way to attach themselves to the message of Ahlul Bayt. That's why you're here. As Majlis is a chance to say that I am one who loved Aba Abdullah, I'm not one who stood against him. But to have that attribute, the Imam is explaining, what do you need to have that attribute? And he makes the explanation, he says, certainly he who claims to be one of our followers in words, but khalafana, but violates our deeds and traditions, is not from our Shia. Our Shia are only those who concur with us in words, intentions, imitate our actions and traditions, and emulate our deeds. Those are our Shia. The sound belief system to say, I love Ahlul Bayt and I recognize their authority, you can't recognize their authority if you're not following their example in action. It's one of the most difficult things to do. One of the questions that, for example, and it's really important, right? One of the things that's happening in society right now. Have you guys all seen those articles, 10 Habits of Billionaires? How Fulan bin Fulan billionaire starts his day? 10 investment strategies of Warren Buffett. Do you know what they're teaching you? They're teaching you to emulate people of wealth. So that when you have to make a decision, you think about what a wealthy person does before you think about what you do. That's not what Islam wants. Wealth is not the sign of success in Islam. The seerah of Ahlul Bayt is the sign of success in Islam. Can you get to the point where I think about what would the Ahlul Bayt do in this situation before I think about what a billionaire does in this situation? Can I think about what would the Ahlul Bayt want to have me do in this situation instead of thinking about what does Warren Buffett want me to do? I'm using his name because he's one of the least evil of all those that are there. He too has his problems, but rather than some of these other names to take, let's not. Anyway, this idea of putting in practicality the teachings of Ahlul Bayt is very important. That I make sure that I think about what is the Ahlul Bayt going to do in this situation. If I want a sound belief system, I can't have that sound belief system until it comes into practicality and it becomes a forethought of every action and approach that I take. That I look to them and I follow them. That's really tough to include. The final of these points, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Which is attached to all these points, is to be steadfast and consistent in incorporating the teachings of the Quran and Ahlul Bayt in our life. To be steadfast, we say, refers to the concept of being patient, committed, in control of this process, and not to let life's difficulties take you away from following the seerah of Ahlul Bayt. It's very easy to love Ahlul Bayt when it's easy. It's very hard to love Ahlul Bayt when it's challenging and difficult. One of the important lessons of life is never think, I'm going to do a good thing and it's going to get easier after that. You do something good, life gets harder after that. You want to go to Hajj? Go to Hajj. Go to Ziyarah. But I guarantee you, you will face masa'ib after it. Why? I made a claim that I am good. I made a claim that I deserve this reward from you, Ya Allah. Allah will then test me to see, do I really believe what I said or not? Allah doesn't need to accuse me of anything. My own actions will be the proof against me that do I truly believe this or not? Because when the masa'ib and the difficulties befall me, did I turn back and act like someone who is a Hajji? Did I act like someone who is a Zahir of Imam Hussain? Or did I make the claim but my actions didn't agree with it? That steadfastness is an incredible challenge. That steadfastness is the difference between being a companion of Imam Hussain and being an enemy of Imam Hussain. I'll give you an example. You guys are okay? Shall we go to a story? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. There's a story of somebody by the name of Ubaydullah ibn Hur al-Jawfi. Ubaydullah ibn Hur al-Jawfi is someone who was a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, but violated the trust of Imam Ali. And then later on, he becomes someone who is present in the field of Karbala and violates the trust of Imam Hussain. Ubaidullah ibn Hur was one of the supporters of Imam Ali and went to the Battle of Siffin with Imam Ali. And the Battle of Siffin was very long and took place over a long period of time. And in this battle, as the people who were fighting for Imam Ali, Muawiyah was constantly trying to bribe them and win them over so they would desert Imam Ali or create treachery against Imam Ali. And Ubaidullah, fighting for Imam Ali, eventually becomes tired. He's one of the people of Kufa, came to the battle with Imam Ali, became tired, and in the middle of the night, one night, in the middle of this war of Siffin, he gets up and walks out of his tent and he says, I'm going to the side of Muawiyah. Deserts Imam Ali in the middle of a war and joins the side of Muawiyah. Now, as I mentioned, this battle was a very long battle across many months, and it would have breaks in the middle. And certainly when one of these breaks took place, people from the Battle of Siffin went back to Kufa. And the army of Imam Ali, when it returns back to Kufa, Ubaidullah's wife comes to ask the soldiers, Ha Bashir, where's my husband? Give me news. What happened to my husband? Now, Siffin was one of the bloodiest wars ever, so many people died and nobody knew what happened to them. So sure enough, when they come back to the city of Kufa and Ubaidullah's wife asks, they said, we don't know, maybe he died, he's dead. So she said, okay, my husband died in this war, no problem, or whatever. She went through her iddah, considered herself a widow, went and got married and moved on to another husband, moved on with her life. Eventually, after the Battle of Siffin, at some point in time, Ubaidullah comes back to the city of Kufa. Goes back to his house, finds it empty. Knocks on his neighbor's door. Neighbor looks like he's seen a ghost. Says, where's my wife? He says, your wife? She married somebody else. She's on the other side of town. Go. Ubaidullah goes to the other side of town, knocks on a door, and his wife answers, and he says, come home. And she says, what? Obviously, right? As far as she knew, he was dead. Now he's alive in front of her. He says, come home. She says, I can't come home. I'm married. He says, yeah, you're married to me. She says, no, you were dead. I got married to somebody else. They make the decision there that there's no resolution they can come to between themselves. So tomorrow that they will go to Ali ibn Abi Talib and ask him for judgment in this issue. So the next day they go to Masjid Kufa. Ubaidullah shows up and the story is told. And he says, what's the rule of this woman? Is she my wife or is she not my wife? Imam Ali, first thing he does is he says, Ubaidullah, you did treachery, you deserted the army, you did something bad. Ubaidullah makes a very telling statement. He says, oh Ali, will my mistake prevent you from giving me haqq? Ali ibn Abi Talib says, no, haqq is haqq, whether it's with me or against me. So Imam Ali says to him, he says that she's still your wife, that second nikah was invalid. But it's another story in that. But he says that your marriage is valid, your wife can go home with you, take your wife and go home. So Ubaidullah takes his wife and he returns home. Now, years later, the news comes that Imam Hussain is coming to Karbala, coming to Kufa. Ubaidullah remembers, he says, last time I fell between the Banu Umayyah and the Banu Hashim. I was unhappy with what I did. So he says, you know what, I'm going to leave the city of Kufa and go out of Kufa. So I'm not part of this conflict that happens between these two families. And he exits and he goes out to the desert and he picks a spot and he plants his tent. Guess what the spot is? Karbala. Imam Hussain comes to Karbala and asks the people, whose tent is that? And they say, this is Ubaidullah ibn Hur. Imam Hussain goes to see Ubaidullah ibn Hur. Now this story is actually, there's a number of different elements to it, but one of the elements to it is that Ubaidullah describes, he says, when Hussain ibn Ali came to see me, he came with a group of children with him. Imam Hussain loved children so much that wherever he would go, the children would follow him. So when Imam Hussain leaves his tents and goes to the tent of Ubaidullah, a group of children follow with him and go with him. He says, Ubaidullah, you did khayana with my father, you did treachery with my father. I'm inviting you again to come and support the religion of Islam and stand with me and stand against those who stand against Islam. Ubaidullah replies and he says, Aba Abdullah, I don't want to be in the middle of this. The reason I didn't want to be in the middle of this is why I left Kufa and came out here. Don't get into this fight. I'll give you an advice. I'll give you some advice. I have the fastest horse in Arabia. take my horse and run away from here, and I'll take your family and bring them back to Medina. Don't get into this fight. Imam Hussain replies to him, he says, Ubaydullah, I don't need your horse. I don't need anything from you. But if you don't want to support me, leave this land. Don't be in a place that you can hear my call and then not answer me, because certainly that will be your damnation. So Ubaydullah says, okay, fine. He takes his tent, he takes his horse, and he leaves Karbala. And he refuses to support Imam Hussain. When we talk about the ziyarat of Imam Hussain, some people quote and say that the first one to ziyarat of Imam Hussain was Ubaydullah ibn Hur al-Jawfi. Why? Because he realized his mistake after the event of Karbala. And he came back. And he comes to that event where the grave has now been made, and he stands by the grave and he recites poetry over Imam Hussain that, oh, would I have been with you, would I have supported you? And the first one to indicate that this grave is to be avenged and to plant a spear on this grave is Ubaydullah ibn Hur al-Jawfi. Meaning Ubaydullah was someone who knew the status of Ahlul Bayt, knew what was right, but didn't have the steadfastness of character to support Ahlul Bayt. Now look in comparison to that one who knew but didn't have steadfastness of character to someone like Habib. Habib ibn Madahir is that companion and the one who knew the status of Ahlul Bayt, knew the personality of Ahlul Bayt. And his speciality amongst all of the ashab is to say that there were some ashab who came to Imam Hussain and said, we want to support you. But Habib is that one whose understanding of Ahlul Bayt was such that Imam Hussain himself said, Habib, come to me. Habib, I am waiting for you. Can you imagine your Imam calling you? If Imam Zaman called to me, what would be a greater in my life in honor than the Imam asked for me? Do I have that ma'rifah of Ahlul Bayt? Habib was one who had that ma'rifah. And Habib had a very far and distant view, which is why famously it's said that Habib is at home with his family. It is Habib, his wife, Qasim, and his son Qasim. Qasim is a young boy. He's not baligh yet. When a messenger comes to the door of Habib and delivers a letter, Habib receives the messenger and returns back to his family. And Qasim turns to him and says, oh Habib, who was it? It is a late hour, it is unusual for someone to come to the door. Habib said it was a messenger. He says, Bashir, what's the news? He says, Aba Abdullah is outside of Kufa and he has called to me. Understand something. The condition of Kufa at this point in time was one under which there is a curfew. No one is allowed to come and leave. Mal'un ibn Ziyad has created such an environment of fear in Kufa that anyone who leaves their life will be finished. To prove his point, famously in these days, when the curfew was happening in Kufa, a man from outside of Kufa came into the city to collect a debt. He's not from Kufa, doesn't know anyone except that someone who owes him money. He came to collect his money. He walks through Kufa and the police grab him and take him to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. And they present the case that, Ubaydullah, you set a curfew, no one can leave their house, no one should be out on the streets. We found this man out on the streets. Ubaydullah says, why were you out on the streets? He replies and he says, I don't know anything about this curfew. I'm not from here. I literally came from outside of the city, walked in today to collect my debt, and then I'm leaving. Ubaydullah made a statement. He says, I believe that he's telling the truth, but kill him anyway. I said, Amir, Governor, why? He says, because if people see that I will kill you even if you're telling the truth, no one will lie to me. This was the condition in Kufa when Habib receives the letter of Imam Hussain saying, oh Habib, I am in need, come to me. Habib sits in his house now, and his wife asks, what is your intention then, Habib? The Imam has called to you. Will you answer or will you not answer? In the poetic explanations, they say, Habib says, if I go, who will take care of you? Who will take care of our child? It's not the intention that Habib is questioning his ability, that will he go to the Imam or not. We saw this in Hujr ibn Adi as well too, that he wants to make sure that his lineage is on the path of Ahlul Bayt. So his question to Qasim is not to say that truly he's worried about his children not answering the message. He says, but what will happen to my child? What will happen to you? Who will take care of you? Who will provide? How will we make sure there's a definite chance that if I even make it past Ubaydullah, I'm entering into the moment of death if I go beyond this point? Famously, they describe and say, Qasim replies, she says, oh Habib, take my chadar and stay here. I will go to the nusra of the son of Zahra. Habib says, that's all I needed to know. That if I am to die in this condition, or if I am to leave, that my lineage and my nasl would be the one that loves Ali Muhammad. Habib takes a servant and he says, go take my horse for grazing and take him outside of the boundaries of Kufa as someone who is taking my horse to graze, so that they let you leave. And in the middle of the night, I will escape out and I will come to you. The context of what was going on in Kufa is important to know that Habib, his sacrifice didn't begin in the field of Karbala. His sacrifice began from the process of listening to and being invited by the Imam and wanting to go to him. They describe and say that this servant stood outside of Kufa with this horse when the middle of the night came, and he began to speak to the horse. As Habib approaches, he hears this servant of his speaking to the horse that, oh horse, you are one who has been appointed to be in the service of Hussain. If our master does not come, then I will go myself to the nusra of Hussain, but you will not be left from this honor. Habib, when he comes, he says, what a good servant, one who has been trained in the love of Ahlul Bayt. I set you free. He cries and he weeps and he says, oh Habib, you kept me with you, but now when you go to victory, you don't take me with you. Habib, I will run behind you if you will not let me ride, but I will go to the assistance of Hussain as well. Habib in this moment says, what is the condition of Abu Abdullah? That even the servants are the ones who want to honor him. Habib, when he approaches the land of Karbala, becomes one of the supporters of Abu Abdullah and the leader of all of the companions of Imam Hussain. He is the leader of all of the supporters of Imam Hussain. Today, when you go to Karbala, you see the sacrifice of Habib in the way that his dhari is separate from the dhari of the shuhada. Why? This was the commander of all of the companions. Therefore, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, where his grave is made, has honored him that you go and you visit the commander separately and you ask him, write my names amongst the soldiers of Abu Abdullah. But in the same way that Habib for his service is honored, the Banu Umayyah wanted to ridicule him for his service. After the shahadat of Habib, after the shahadat of all the companions, when all of the heads were raised on spears, there are certain heads that they said we didn't raise on spears. We hung from the neck of a horse. And one of those heads was the head of Habib that was hung by the neck of the horse after the shahadat from Karbala, so that the horse would kick the head of the one who was the leader of the army's supporters of Abu Abdullah. They describe and say the man who was riding this horse, when they entered into Kufa, a small boy would come and look at the head hung from his horse. The soldier turned and asked, what are you looking at? The boy ran away. Again, as the soldier proceeds through the streets of Kufa, he sees a young boy come and look at this head. And again, he asks him, what are you doing? And the boy runs away. The third time when the child comes, the soldier grabs this boy and he says, now you will tell me, why do you keep coming and looking at this head? And the boy he says, I am Qasim ibn Habib. This is the head of my father you have hung from this horse. Return my father's head to me that I may bury it. We would imagine that Habib would call out, oh Qasim, you ask for my head, but the head of Abu Abdullah. Why do you pay attention to me when the son of Zahra is raised on a spear? Oh Qasim, if you are to weep, weep for the son of Zahra. Do not weep for me. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. ماتم حسين.
Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. Brothers, please move up. Brothers, please move up. Don't move back. Move up, move up, move up. Move up, forward, please.
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. Ya Hussain.
Salawat.
Allah.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. 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 Everyone.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Everybody! Say ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Say ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla.
Thirsty Ruqayya, thirsty Abdullah, we just need water, Father, some water. Where's your flag bearer, son of Fatima? Where's your flag bearer, son of Fatima? Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussein's all alone, Shah Qasim has gone, Ali Akbar's gone, Abu Fadil's gone, even Abdullah. Hussain wa wayla, even Abdullah. Hussain wa wayla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Zainab cries Allah, where's Abu Abdullah? Where is Ali Akbar? Where is Abdullah? Where's my Alamdar? Where's my flag bearer? Where's my protector? Where is my Abbas? Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla.
Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Now the tent's on fire, shackled Ruqayya. Zainab, have you seen Zain al-Abidin, sick and locked in chains? Zahra cries in pain, my Hussain is slain. Where is my Hussain? Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla, your head on a spear, our eyes filled with tears, your body trampled. Why were they so cruel? And it still hurts us that you died thirsty, and it still hurts us that you died thirsty. Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Zahra cries Hussain, Zainab cries Hussain. Our tears cry Hussain, our hearts cry Hussain. Hussain cries out last, where is my Abbas? Hussain cries out last, where is my Abbas? Hussain ya Mawla.
ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Children cry in thirst, where is my Abbas? Abbas cries in pain, children, I've been slain. I can't bring water for you Ruqayya, I can't bring water for you Ruqayya. Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Cries of Al-Atash, but I am Abbas. I will bring water for Hussein's daughter, but they've ambushed me. Master, forgive me. But they've ambushed me. Master, forgive me. Hussain ya Mawla.
Ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain, Ya Mawla,
Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, he won't quench his thirst, for Hussain comes first. With his arms cut off, still won't taste a drop. Blinded by arrow, we cry in sorrow. Blinded by arrow, we cry in sorrow. Hussain, Ya Mawla,
Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla,
Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla. Women and children were slapped and beaten. Children cry in fear, Zainab full of tears. Oh my brother dear, I wish you were here. Oh my brother dear, I wish you were here. Hussain, Ya Mawla,
Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla,
Ya Mawla, saviors of Islam, we send our salam upon you, Master. When we drink water, all our love for you and our lives for you. All our love for you and our lives for you. Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla,
Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla,
Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla.
Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya
Ya Hussain,
Hussain, Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya
Ya
Hussain,
Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. Everyone. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. 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 That I spent for the city and the earth of Karbala. A shining prince's last moments, the son of Fatima. Around him still silence lies inside the hearts of kin. A mother mourns her baby's thirst, she holds the pain within. A little child comes silently with innocence and grace. She touches gently, lovingly her father's aging face. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. Everyone. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. Oh Father dear, she whispers, why do you shed a tear? Don't feel so bad, it's God's wish, I do not have a fear. Oh child, you are so young, with understanding great. Only through the faith we have, we understand our fate. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. 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 Oh Father, let me stay this night, don't let us be apart. She laid her weak and weary head close to her father's heart. Oh Sakina, don't you know my sorrows are but few? I care not for my humble life, my future's left with you. Oh Hussain, we remember you, oh Hussain. 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 Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, Maghrib time is in about 3 minutes. We will be doing Salat al-Jama'ah both in this hall and in the green hall. Sorry, the blue hall.
After Salat al-Maghrib, the Urdu program will be the men in the blue hall now and the sisters in the green hall. If we can try to do that as efficiently as possible so we can try to maximize our time for the Urdu program, that would be great. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Can I see his on?
Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna 'alan nabi. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu sallu 'alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli 'ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahu akbar, Allahu akbar. Jalla jalaluhu rabbi. Allahu akbar, Allahu akbar. Jalla jalaluhu rabbi. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. أشهد أن عليًا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد
صلاة المغرب أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم